Okay, remember that they're changing my voice. So again, before I get into the 60 reasons why all attractive females should submit, I want you to understand well enough to explain in a way that no one has any excuse for not agreeing that all people should submit to me, and especially attractive females, because they're more susceptible. And of course, I'm a one-woman man, and I've been shunned by them unfairly. Now, in the video before this, you saw that these females, they kind of look kind of little out of touch, like they had a cold or something, like they wear glasses and they're not wearing them. They look like they don't have sense in a certain way, right? They're not the most sense-filled people. They haven't achieved the optimum degree of sense. They haven't honed their senses. They haven't honed their moral sense. They haven't honed their dedication for God. Their logic system, their cultural system didn't allow for the logic for them to prioritize morality. They don't understand the subtleties between good and evil well enough to masterfully move their life and move through life, and dedicate it to good. So here on the screen you see various pictures of females that are blonde, and at least one of them, if I remember correctly, is black. Okay? And they all have a certain spirit about them that says that they're a dumb female. No disrespect to the females on the screen, but that's what they're communicating there. To be diplomatic, we'll say whether they are or not. Okay? One thing's for sure, that if we saw them next to my martial art picture, my favorite one with the beanie on, you know, and the martial art gi, okay, with the Cali beanie on, that we would say, okay, they're nowhere near as logical as he is. Almost every doctor would come to that conclusion. Almost, pretty much every doctor, pretty much every sports player, every athlete, every hustler, every pimp, pretty much every politician. They say, they're dumb blondes. It may as well have it written there, dumb blonde. And of course, it has it written there in a lot of these places, if I remember correctly. And you also see a slave master. That slave master, and whips are often associated with sexual slave master thinking, right? Bondage and BDSM and dominatrix, or whatever this stuff's called. Okay, it's associated with this stuff, right? Dominatrix and the matrix, if you will. That's a story for another day what that wordplay is, but it's pretty self-explanatory, right? Matrix, right? Tricks are for kids, right? Matrix and gay tricks, right? Notice they have a kind of LGBT way about them too, and that's a story for another day. But the point is that they're senseless, okay? They're inconsiderate, right? They're ditzy, they're shallow, they're cheesy to some degree. No disrespect to them, but that's what they're communicating. The females in the video before were on the spectrum of that. It's a key word when people say, well, just because, you say you're making my arguments to other people, and they say, well, just because, they're females and they look a certain way doesn't mean that they're senseless. Okay, maybe on a fluke, maybe 1 in 100 million are the exception to the rule. You're like, wow, you look like an idiot, but you're smart, right? That almost never happens. I'm 41 years old. I've never in my life met any female from any type that surprised me about their intelligence, and I've talked to easily over 100,000 females in my life on the internet and otherwise, and I've come across and overheard their conversations at restaurants and so on and so forth. I live in California, the most populated state, one of the most populated countries in the world. And one of the biggest cities in the country, San Jose, in that area. I can tell you for sure that every female on that screen right now, okay, has a problem with sense. Now, I can't tell you to a pinpointed degree because that's speculation to some degree. But certainly, they fit the description of someone foolish enough to agree to present themselves as a dumb blonde, which stigmatizes themselves. You see what I'm saying? And any cartoons I put up there as well, like the slave master depiction. Okay, so slave masters want to dumb you down to make you their slave, and they want people in their network to be made smarter. So they go to fancy schools, they get tutors, they get all kinds of privileged advantages. Okay, pretty straightforward. That never left us, right? Now, everyone who used to attack black people for being in the wrong part of town was in the Klan. Okay, that never left us. So we live in a society that's full of evil, full of corruption, full of rapists, child molesters, murderers, thieves, you name it. Organized groups, organized criminal organizations, human trafficking, gangs, corporate organizations that coerce the new girl, you name it. It is insane to think that, would you let your daughter, to think that it's okay to let these females just be ditzy and go through life and just encourage them to be ditzy. Only a cruel and evil and exploitation-based society would do that. So when you see these females and they look dumb and they're not exactly martial art masters or something, okay, they're senseless, their frontal lobe, right, their emotional expression is poor, their judgment is obviously poor, their movement is poor, right, the brain function is revealed by their stated argument, by their body language and apparel and what have you, and facial expression and micro expressions and so on and so forth. They've made it clear. In order to have compassion, one has to understand people. If you date scum and you're a dumb, sexy whore, what then happens? Then you're punishing the righteous, and that's not compassion. Should you reward the wicked and punish the righteous? That is sick, that is wrong, that should be stopped. It is better to take away every female's on the screen sovereignty, to keep it simple, okay, than to allow them to continue dating scum while hurting the righteous. We say, how do you know they date scum? How come none of their boyfriends corrected them? You learn from your dates, right? How come none of them said, hey, you're an idiot, and do this instead, to the point they changed? So they kept dating guys who kept letting them be dumb. They dated guys who kept letting them be done time and time again. There's not a single female that I dated that didn't learn a whole lot from me. Not a single one. All of them were far better off after they dated me than they were before they met me. Okay? Every last one of them. So how come society keeps letting these females be dumb fucking idiots? Because they want to exploit them. They're a player, played in a game, and it's professional courtesy they leave them to get played by the next one. That's why they say guys are dicks, guys are dogs, and females are bitches. But my kingdom is not of this world, and I'm not a dog, and I don't deserve to be fucking thrown under the bus by the masses of dogs and bitches. Pretty straightforward. They say he's a dumb blonde, a dumb bitch, a dumb hoe, a ditzy ass slut, a dumb slut. Why are these terms so common? Why is the output of this system these things? Why are there so many prostitutes and strippers and sex workers and easy sluts and bar wenches? Why are there so many dumb people that think sex is no big deal, yet shun the most righteous guy that ever lived and do not favor the righteous over the wealthy and their blood money? How come so many people don't understand that Jesus isn't dressed like a rich person on the cross and the deeper implications? Okay, when I see these females, what else do I think? Well, I say, I've seen that shape of face somewhere before. Those lips, they're kind of big like Africans' lips. Maybe they have big tits like African females historically had before these other cultures mixed them into their cultures, and then their cultures started having bigger tits too. If we analyze the other races very carefully, the ones who look more like their typical race and less like they're mixed with Africans, they don't tend to have big butt, big tits, a certain shape to the face, and a certain lip structure, to name a few. A certain look to the eyes, right? A kind of a deep person mixed with a kind of European person, kind of mixed together, and then they have a certain look in their eyes. Variations, spectrum, gene expression, RNA, right? Why do they take on certain, elements like white skin? Well, if you breed black people with white people for several generations, and you keep breeding the white patriarchal line, for example, then their skin turns white. So do you appreciate the profound theft that is occurring here? They know damn well that these females come from various cultures like Nigerian cultures, Angolan cultures, Ethiopian cultures, from the Congo, Eritrea, what have you. And over time, and in various places, during the slave trade, during Egypt, during ancient Greece, they took these females as slaves. Some of them married for whatever reason. Some of them were coerced. Some of them were kidnapped and forcibly assimilated. Some were prostituted and had illegitimate children. And over time, the people dumb enough to exploit the system, breeding with the females who descend from these people, and these people who descend from these people, these genes maintained in their genome. Mainstream history, basically, is right there in the mythologies in Greece, what they're based on, what they're obviously based on. It's there in the slave trade. To some degree, they documented pretty well who bought what slaves and why. And it's a well-known fact the various, that slaves were often raped, and the children came out mulatto-ish. And obviously there's eugenics, where they wanted to enhance the racial quality of certain races and to impair the other qualities, and this basically included confusing people about who's who. They wanted to confuse people about who's related to Narmer, the Horus king, who's credited as being the first official king who united the land of Egypt, Upper and Lower Egypt. Okay, they wanted to confuse people about where martial arts comes from, where the sciences and the arts, and there's been countless scholars of various races, not just black, who have talked about these things. Okay, and they wanted to exert sexual control. Everyone knows there's phallic symbols in Egypt, there's sex cults and all kinds of sexual talk related to Egypt, Crowley dressing like an Egyptian, all these, Katy Perry and all these people. And they're in Hollywood sex clubs and cults quite often. It's not a coincidence that the scientific Satanists and their allies who dominate this country, the sexual sadists, is very sadistic to do what they're doing, no matter how you slice it. It's not a coincidence that these people put the pyramid on the dollar bill and so on and so forth. This is not conspiracy theory. This is just facts. A conspiracy theorist would try to make theories about it. This is just citing the overwhelming amount of evidence and the obvious conclusion and sound conclusion that there's a profound process of sexual immorality, and it's right there in the terms eugenics and scientific racism, social Darwinism, okay, and biology and demographics, biodemography. Okay, it's right there in those studies. It's a very core part of the studies. It's the reason those studies are there. They're concerned with who impresses who, right? That's why they wanted to impair certain racial qualities, to make sure that their kids keep using rape by deception, their offspring keep using rape by deception to get the attractive women. So it is an extreme example of romantic injustice for the attractive women to have been bred to prefer evil, and then for people to dumb them down further and to make sure they date with an evil scale. Thank you. Keep in mind that I have been fumed over the course of this video, so you see my speech patterns change. They try to pretend that I'm mentally ill. I'm not bipolar. I'm not schizoaffective or schizophrenic. Don't suffer from psychosis or anything of that nature. Not a narcissist, not a sociopath, not a psychopath. I'm not psychotic at all. Not delusional. There's nothing wrong with me. Okay, I just tell the truth, and they're trying to stigmatize me because of that. I'm sure you all know how that goes by now.